applying textures is a really underrated or underutilized like component of 3D printing. So obviously, like when we design parts or when we get designs, typically they're designed with like smooth surfaces. And with 3D printing, obviously we can like sometimes see layer lines. And like sometimes people are okay with it, sometimes they're not. It depends on the application or like what the goal is of that part. In a lot of cases, it's not like a good thing that people want. So, and one example of that is car parts. So this is a car part, and basically you can see that this model has a texture applied to it. Now, I applied this texture to this model using Blender. So I'm kind of showing the end result, and then I'll show you like how I did it. It's actually not too difficult. So Blender is a free software, but you can do a lot with it. But one of the things that you can do is apply textures to surfaces. And it's an absolute beast of a software. You can do like way more than that. But that's just one kind of aspect to it. You can take meshes or models and do things with it. You can animate meshes. You can take renders. So you can do product photography and professional kind of grade renders. You can make animations. Yeah, Blender is a really big software that can do quite a lot. But back to 3D printing. So when we print something, being able to apply a texture can like drastically change like the way that you like feel or interact with that part. And you only have to ask yourself, like, how does when you walk into like a shop or when you buy filament, when you see like different filaments or different parts that are like, you got like shiny filaments like with the silk PLAs, and then you got the tricolors and the gradient ones, like the way that you look at those parts is completely different. So textures are a lot the same. The texture can make a huge difference to how someone like values the part or how they interact with it. And that's why like basically all of our colors are matte colors like that we sell here with at Arenalo, because we're going for that kind of premium look, whereas that kind of shiny glossy look, that's just not the look that we're going for. It's not to say that it's not premium or whatever, but it's just we've kind of connected to this kind of aesthetic. And you can do that with colors, surface finishes, and in this case, textures. So yeah, Blender is free. So I'm just going to go open it up and kind of just show you like the big picture of like how this kind of works. Here we go. Can you see that now?
Yes.
So these triangles here of my mesh are really big. And the problem is that when I apply my texture, that'll look like this. The issue is that it's not going to like touch. It's going to touch one triangle, and that triangle's huge. It's going to like push it in and out. You're not going to be able to get the resolution that you need. Why isn't it showing? Oh my goodness. There we go. Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the texture, and they're going to be like 2 or 3 millimeters across. But these triangles are like 20 centimeters across. So we need to remesh it basically. So the first job is to add a modifier. So you go to this icon and you go add modifier, and I actually like to remesh the part. So what that's going to do is you're going to look at the whole surface and create that mesh again. And that's actually a good way to like fix broken models or anything like that, and just add more detail back into the model so you can end up sculpting or adding textures. So once I hit it's going to give me this option to change the voxel size. So that's the distance between each of those. 0.1 is quite fine. That's 10 nodes per millimeter. So that's quite detailed. That might be required for adding this texture if we make it really small. What I'm going to do just to make sure that Blender doesn't crash while I'm streaming everything is just make it a tiny bit bigger. But this will totally depend on your texture. Like if your texture was really small, you have to make that small. Like you got to make it like similar or a bit smaller than the actual texture size. But if the texture is quite big, say the texture was like big circles that are like 5 centimeters, then your voxel size might be, 0.5 millimeter or something like that. So it just depends like, how big your texture is. So the smaller your texture, the smaller your mesh needs to be to accurately represent it. It's kind of like if you paint an image with like a low resolution, it'll be okay if your image has low resolution, but not okay if you have like a fully detailed like image. So, at the end of the day, it'll depend on your texture. So I'm just going to put in 0.2 millimeters because I kind of guess that every bit of my texture will be around 1 millimeter. So it's like a fifth of that. So it'll capture detail in there. So I'll click OK, and then it's going to like think about everything now. It's going to like think about the surface and like change it. And then what I can do actually to check that is apply this change. So I'll hit apply here and then go back to edit mode, and that'll show me those pixels or those voxels. So here we go. It's going to think, and you can see here that it's actually like turn the whole thing black because they all look like edges. But if I zoom in, you can see how small these points are. So now my mesh is like tiny. It's like really small because I'm going to apply a pretty small texture to this. So the next thing that we do is, now that we've done that, we can go back to object mode, and there's just like, these are like two little quirks that you have to do. So the first one is that we click Control A, and we apply all transforms. So this is like just to make sure the remesh happened correctly. And then if I go back to edit mode, I'll explain these in a bit more detail in a sec. And then if I hit A, I'm going to be able to select all the nodes. And basically, I'm just going to recalculate the outside surface. And the way that you do that is you hit Alt-N, and then you just go recalculate the outside. And what that does is just make sure those two steps that we just did are kind of quirks. Like, it's just making sure that everything in the mesh is like where it needs to be. It's just like checking everything. So you don't have to worry about that too much, right? It's just, we've remeshed it to make a smaller mesh, and then we just applied 2 checks. And then now we're going to unwrap this part. So this is a really interesting concept, but like with meshes, like all these meshed components can be unwrapped and put onto a surface. And where this is typically used is in like gaming and animation. Like, so people will design characters, like full-blown sculptures of like figurines, let's say, or computer game characters or whatever. And then they will unwrap the mesh and then paint it so that that character has, like, say, a red hand and, you know, white gloves or something like that. But the way they do that is by unwrapping this mesh and putting it on like a flat page. So that's what we have to do now. We just press U, and then we go Smart UV Project. So, and then the island margin, we put this as a low value. This is another quirk. This is just the difference between like when it reaches a boundary, like how much it smooths to make it so there's no seam. So don't worry too much about that. Let's just go big picture for now, and I'll click OK. Okay, so then now that it's done that, if I go to UV editing and I select, I can show all my parts by clicking this button. You can see that it's actually unwrapped this entire model into these pieces. Can you see that? So, like, for example, if I select this group of points here, you'll see that on the left side here, it's on this point. So if I wanted to select this whole face now, I could lasso select it and go like this, and I could lasso select it. Nice, got it. All right. Oops. And now I'm going to select all those points in that space that's just on this face. See that? So now I could apply a texture to just that region. So what I'll do now is I'm going to say I just want to apply a texture to that face. And this, you could keep going and selecting every side that you wanted to apply texture from. But you make a vertex group. I don't know why they use different names. Vertex group. I'm going to create that. So I'm going to assign these selected nodes to that group. So I just click the sign. While that's thinking, any questions on that, Liz?
Or does it just cover the whole bit, or do you have to match it up? Like if the piece was large and your text just covered a portion of it, will it just multiply the texture along it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. It'll repeat it. What I usually try and do is make it so the texture is like a decent amount smaller than, at least like 3 or 4 times smaller than the actual part, at least. Okay. Like this will be way more smaller, and then you repeat it. So yeah, you'll see in a minute that when we apply this. So what I'll do now is, so I don't cry, I'm gonna save this work. Okay, and then we go back to our modifier, and now we're gonna use the displace modifier. And this is where like the real magic is. So the displace modifier applies a texture. So you can see on the right here, I don't have any textures here, so I need to click on new. So if I go here, now it's made the texture, but I haven't actually given it the image, right? So here is the button where it goes show in texture tab, and the texture tab's down here, this little texture icon. So I can click on that, and you can see that my texture that I had is here, but it's just blank right now. So now I can click on open because I've actually got a texture that we had before, and basically I'm just going to find that texture. The texture from Jer, which is Jeremy. And I'm going to double click on that. And then it's just going to like show that black and white image. Now, Jeremy made that with AI, like I mentioned. I like to make it with Inkscape. You put the image into Inkscape, and then you can trace the bitmap. Actually, it'll be easier if I show you how to do that. So I'll do that after we do. So here's our texture. I can go back to our displace. Now, in our edit mode, it's not going to show me anything of the texture being applied. I have to go back to object mode. So I'm going to do that. And there'll be a lot, like just a couple of things that we have to change, because right now you can see that this texture is being applied, but it's happening in a really weird way. It's also happening over the entire model, which I don't want. We just want that group that we created. So I'm going to click on this drop down, select the group, and then it should just happen on this face. So there we go. It's just happening on that one face. But you can see it looks nothing like the texture. And that's because the direction's wrong. And this is why we UV unwrapped it before, because we actually want to use that UV map to apply the texture normal to that face. So we click on UV. And now you can see that looks like our texture, but it's really big. Where do we change that? Well, we go back to the texture. We go to mapping. And this is where you were talking about, Liz, how does it repeat or whatever. This is where you can add repetition. So you can add it in the X and Y direction. So I can say maybe I want it to be 4 times in each direction and see like what that looks like. And you can start to see I'm starting to get to my desired finish. But this part's quite big, and that texture is meant to be much, much smaller. So I could go and change this to like 10 and 10. And now I'm getting like much closer to like what I would want. And you can see that they kind of come, now that I made it really small, they're kind of coming out too much. So I need to change the strength. So I can go here and change the strength as well. So I'm just going to make it by a third. And yeah, you can see like now I've got like these good little, they actually look like leather now, like on my screen at least, like it looks like leather. With the only exception of, you know how we made the voxel size 0.2? You can see these tiny little kind of increments. And that's because we're editing a mesh, all those little mesh points. And the biggest or the smallest size is 0.2. So we're going to have some sort of granulation. That's what we call it. But in this case, it's still going to keep the detail, because you have to think about how we're going to make this. I mean, we are making this on a 3D printer that has a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. And when it goes around these corners, it's going to make them smooth anyway. Like it's not going to have those like tiny little, those are like rounding errors, all these. We are zoomed right into it. So you're not going to really see it at this size. But if you really wanted to be finicky, I guess you could like make the mesh even finer, but you're not going to see those like little points. That's how you apply texture and how you like put it onto a surface, a particular surface of a model. Now, if you see here on the edge, we didn't select a perfect like edge to hide this like texture from. So you might have to like play with some of the settings, or you might go in afterwards and smooth this. But once you're done, you can go to this drop down again and hit apply, and that'll permanently like apply that texture to the model. But you just won't be able to go back from there. So that's just the only thing from there. And then once you're done with that, you just click on it, go file, export STL, and you have an STL. It's as simple as that. So the only thing to consider is like when I'm exporting this as an STL. So let me just do that now. Texture school. Texture.
And while you're doing that, Tony, just a quick one.
Yeah.
I'd missed the last couple of weeks anyway. In fact, since the beginning of the year, so I missed all of the ones where Jeremy wasn't.
Oh, that's right.
Which is a pity.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We'll have to get him on future chats. That's for sure. Because he's a wealth of knowledge. That's for sure. Yeah. Liz, were you here last week when Jeremy?
I tried to be, but I was up on the Murray and I kept cutting in and out.
Fair enough.
Unfortunately, yeah.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so yeah, I'll try and get him for more, but yeah, he gets pulled in a lot of different directions because he's running the show. You know, when I'm working at 3D Printing Gear, so I'm at home now. Yeah, like he's always getting asked questions, and I think a big part of what he's trying to do now is automate a lot of the stuff that he does. But it's big business, so there's work to do, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've got the download. So I've exported that now, and I'm going to go and drag this into here, and you're going to see that we've got that part with just the texture on one face applied to it. And one consideration when you're printing textures, and this is actually, it goes for a lot of different like parts, like in 3D printing, a lot of different like features, is you want to make sure that you are thinking about the orientation of your part. So let me just make this smaller. There we go. So if you got to think about the orientation of your part when you're printing it. So in this orientation, the texture will print really nicely because in the XY direction, it'll create these like little divots and little mounds that it'll kind of weave between as it's printing that layer. And it'll actually take a lot longer to print because of that. It can't like quickly zoom across and like print that wall. It has to like slow down and jitter. You can see here, if I zoom in, like these are coming out like really nicely in this direction, but it's got to like jitter around, and that's why it'll take like a lot longer to like print that part. But yeah, so can you guys see that properly? Yeah.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. But if I go and turn it in this way, then this is where you kind of get the limitation, right, of 3D printing, like orientation wise. You get a limitation here. That texture just can't be applied in the same way in this direction because the texture height might be less than a layer, or it might be about one layer. This is where you have to like figure out how do you apply the texture but make it print in a uniform way, because the whole point of it is to try and make your eyes seamlessly kind of gloss over it, and it's like, oh, it's this like beautiful part. Whereas if you have like the texture change like this, like you can see how this, especially with this part that's curved, like it's not printing well at all in this direction. There's still a texture. It just, and you know, maybe if you printed it, it would look okay. It just doesn't look exactly like what we had before. That's because of the orientation. So how do you get around this? Any ideas?
Gimbal.
What was that?
That's what I want to know. When are we going to get like 6 degrees of printing? Like,
right. Yeah. Yeah,
like a
and
gimbal.
and what you're saying is like it's totally valid. Like if you need to print in that's the changed orientation.
Yeah.
And that actually is my solution. Just what I was going to suggest is, if you want a different surface to have that texture, maybe that's an insertable plate or something like that. It's like you print it in the correct orientation, or the optimal orientation, and then it inserts into that part.
Yeah, arguably, could you print like a first layer with a texture which is really thin and flexible, and then almost like
glue it on,
over like a veneer?
Yeah, maybe. It'll just depend on your part. Like if it's a curved surface, it might be hard, and then the texture itself, you probably
change,
like you probably want to print it in like, so the Z plane is involved.
Right.
Like,
you're right.
Flat, then it'll be like smooth, right? So you'll need a few layers, and then you'll run into this kind of same issue.
Yeah, you're right.
So this is where. So if you had to make this part, if I was like forced to make this part with the texture, I would go and make it with insertable plates or whatever, like for those sides. Or here's the other alternative. You kind of get the best of both worlds if you like angle the part and it's all uniform. So let me try and make this right. If I do it like this and print it like that, because then say this top surface, I know it doesn't have a texture on it, but where my mouse is now, if that had a texture on it, it will print pretty similar to this side one, because it's on a 45-degree angle, like to the XY plane. It's on a 45-degree angle. So I would consider printing it like that. And this is really weird, right? Who would print this part like this? How would you even do it, like to make sure that it's stuck?
Supports, right?
Yeah, so you add support. So you could do support a lot of ways. People add sometimes custom support. So you can design a support in there. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to just paint on those supports.
Sorry, Tony, would you be able to use AI to say something like, what would be the best orientation to print this? Do you think you'd get a decent answer? Or?
Maybe. You just have to explain yourself really clearly. In this case, I actually think that the best orientation would be not this way, but this way. So if you did it like this, you have a 45-degree edge, and then all of this surface is internally supported. Hopefully that makes sense, but let me try and explain what I mean. Like before, when it was flipped on the other way, we had all of these surfaces as overhangs. So you would have to have support all in here. But now if we did it this way, then the support actually doesn't need to be on this face because it's at 45 degrees. And then here it angles upwards, so it actually becomes more supported. So you won't need supports there. The main support you'll need actually is just to make sure that this thing doesn't fall over. Yeah, actually, you don't even need support if you print it like this orientation.
Wow.
Except for maybe some of these bits, you'd have to check out some of those internal bits, and maybe this hole, actually, now that I'm thinking of it. Yeah, if I clicked on this and go and paint on supports, I would paint supports incrementally at like different points along this model. So I would do it like, one there and maybe like one here. But I might make them like small. I don't know how. I wouldn't want to make them big because then it would
it'll mess the texture.
Yeah, it'll mess the texture up. So if I did tree manual support, just so it doesn't take ages to load, I'll put this on draft mode. I just want to show you the support. I don't want to show you the detailed print. This is how I would do it. And then I'll show you like how to even like look for support material, because like sometimes you don't need support and the slicer will tell you need support. And it's like, no, I don't. So the slicer is an algorithm. It's trying to like help you with generic advice. Like sometimes that advice isn't right or just isn't required. And then this, what you'll notice here as well is that this model has over 1 million triangles. That's why it's taking so long to slice. So see how I've added custom support here? So I didn't design the support in here. I just painted on like little points. I really like doing that. It's like a really nice way of like making sure that this model won't fall. And you could do more of them or less of them. You could make the dot tiny. You could change the style to be strong. And then maybe if you had enough of them, they would connect together. So you'd make it really rigid. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you could do it. I could even add it on the other side. Actually, I should have probably added one on this side, just as it builds up. It's got support on both of the both sides of the, I guess, of the pivot point, which is on the bed. So yeah, there we go. There's strong support, so that's like all connected to one point. All right, so if I go to line type now, anything that's hopefully you guys know this by now, but if you go to line type, you'll see all these colors along the side here. Those colors show different types of walls, right? So you got the inner wall, which is yellow, and then the outer wall. And that's why here, when I zoom in, the outer wall is mainly orange, but then sometimes when the texture juts out, you can see the inner wall behind it. So you will see some of the inner wall, which is kind of funny. Like when you think about it, you actually will see the second shell. And what was my point? Yes, I was going to look at overhangs and bridging. So all the blue bits are overhung walls. So I might have an issue when it gets to that hole, because I can see that I've got some blue regions here. And what I'm looking for here is, are these blue regions going to be an issue? Now, this blue region now is along this edge. So what I then ask myself is, okay, as it's printing this edge, is it really going to be an issue? So that's supported. That line was supported as well. So let me zoom in here. Hopefully you can see like this. So I'm just playing through using this slider. That one's supported as well. So you can see that it's completely supported. And then I think it's the next one that's unsupported. So this one here, it's got a tiny little bit of support. You can see that. But then it's got this tiny little gap that comes over. And if I was worried about that, I guess I could add support along that gap. But you got to look at how small this unsupported region is and also the geometry. In this particular case, it is printing along the wall and has a little bit of support from the previous layer. You can see that it's got a bit of overhang here. So this bit will be fine. It's just this bit that comes out that might not be. But this is like 0.4, like the nozzle is 0.4, right? So this is like moving about a nozzle width away from the wall and then straight back onto it. So it'll probably be fine, is what I'm saying, especially with like the cooling and stuff that like these printers have. If you're really worried about it, you could print maybe just that section and like test it first, like cut it out and like see if that overhangs too much and then do it. That's probably how I would go about it, instead of like wasting a day of printing to like check if that works. Yeah, that's how I would do it. So hopefully you guys check overhangs like that. If you don't, I guess now you know how to. But like another little example of like, see where these are bridging here, those are perfectly fine. They're like really small bridged areas. You don't have to like worry about like stuff like that. It's only when they get like really big, like actually now I've just seen this one here. These might be an issue potentially, some of these ones in here. So you just got to go through and do your checks. Now, this actual part someone designed, right? And if they were designing it for 3D printing, you can change the surface here to be like less of an overhang. That's totally plausible. And it wouldn't even look bad. Like you just slightly change like this offset to like get rid of this overhang. Totally doable, especially if you're redesigning this part, and it'll still look original. Like the slight change in curvature you won't be able to notice it much with your eyes. So that's one way that I check for overhangs. The other way that I do it is if you go to the support painting again, there's actually a button that says highlight overhangs. It'll also color the part one color, which makes it like visually, I think, a little bit easier to like kind of see. Highlight overhang areas. So if I kind of scroll this out to like 30, 40 degrees, it'll start to like show me where these overhang areas are. See there? So if I know like I can print up to like 40 degrees here, no problems, then it's only this edge. See how it's highlighting that edge that we identified before with the bridging? That is the issue. And then this inner edge with the cup. Now, this is a cup holder, this bit, and this bit I think the handbrake goes into. Why does that need to be a fillet? It doesn't need to be. It doesn't necessarily need to be. It could be a chamfer. It could be a tiny chamfer, maybe. It doesn't necessarily need to be a fillet, especially if we're going to print it in this orientation. And this is why, like, if you know how to do your own designs and you know how to do 3D printing, it's a game changer, because like you'll be able to do all these things and make these decisions while you're designing to make it easier to print. And that'll do a lot of things, right? it'll mean your part will look better. It'll function better. So it'll look better. It'll function better. It'll be more reliable to print. So it's a better business case, I guess, like in terms of like there's less wastage, like in terms of like failed prints. And you will also be able to make more valuable parts for your customer if you know how to design. That's just like the truth of it. Like if you can learn it, you just be able to make more valuable parts for your customers because you can make something exactly for them. And Liz, like you saw that from like the toilet thing, like even just adding like a logo, like just increases the value like tremendously. Like imagine if you can make the entire design specifically for them. The other overhang that I see, or the other kind of hard part of this, is that the bottom, the very first layer is on a fillet, a rounded edge. That could be a chamfer as well, potentially. It kind of depends. Like that's the top part of this console. So maybe that's why that bit's a fillet. I know definitely the inside the cup holder doesn't need to be a big fillet like that. I mean, maybe you could cut the tiniest flat edge here, but you're going to use a brim anyway, so it's probably fine. Cool beans. Any questions on that?
Tony, with regard to that not the orientation, but if you put a brim there, I found cleanup can be a bit of a nightmare when you're trying to clean up a brim, and that's obviously something that's going to be quite a prominent facing part. Yeah, how do you get around that? You said it's
so
around that edge over, or it's
you're gonna have to test. There's a few bits to the brim, so you need really good first layer like leveling. So what printer do you have again, Adrian?
I had an Elegoo Centauri Carbon. I returned it because of the whole fiasco around the multicolor unit, which they're not bringing out. So I was looking to get a P2S, but that's still awaiting. It's on back order.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It is.
So I'm printerless at the moment.
Yeah, that's okay. So just making sure that whatever you do go for has really good bed leveling. Like all the like, this isn't me trying to sell you. I don't get anything from like a Bambusa. But all the Bambu printers have really good leveling when you ensure that you calibrate them and you got the right like filament settings. So that's the number 2. So number 1 is the bed leveling. So and then number 2 is your filament settings. You really want to dial them in, especially for the first layer in this case. And the thing that you can do with brims is if you go to your settings here, you can type in brim, where is it? Brim. I've never actually changed this. Brim object gap 0.1. I don't use brims that much. Just don't need to, which is pretty handy. But yeah, the brim object gap 0.1, that is going to give you the ability to go, it stuck too much to this material or my settings, whatever. When I printed it with this material on this printer, it just stuck too much. So maybe I increase the gap by 0.5. Yeah, or like, or I double it. You just don't want to make it too big, or else it won't actually like stick. Yeah. If I make this really big, just to drive the point home, you'll see that. Oh no, it's going to slice the whole thing. But you'll see that there's an actual gap between the brim and the part, and that just makes it that it's what it's meant to do is peel away. So I guess calibrate your brim. Yeah, that's literally it. Calibrate your brim or change those temperatures. So you can see this gap now. I know it's kind of a bit harder to see, but it prints that, and you can see that big gap. So obviously this won't help with adhesion anymore, but yeah, you can change that value there. Yeah. You can also paint it on. So if you only want it in certain parts of the model, you might only want to brim on like the outer edge of this, so it doesn't touch the whole front face. So you can paint it on. Yeah, there's a few like generic algorithms, but they do like a pretty similar thing. You basically control where it goes, where the brim goes. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. So yeah, I see this being quite useful for any type of part that you hold or aesthetic pieces. Definitely for vases and home decor kind of stuff like that. Pot plants. Like you could have one generic pot plant with a tray, let's say, and then lots of different textures. Same design, just with different textures. And that's like, I think you might have like 5 different textures and 5 different types of plants. Or they come together as a set or something like that. If I showed you, I can show you quickly how I use Inkscape to actually do this. So Inkscape is a vector program, if you don't know it. But one thing that it does well, apart from being free, is it can analyze images. So if I get an image of a texture, so I've just gone onto Google here. Let me just show you, just to prove it. I've gone to Google, typed in leather, clicked on that, and then I'm just going to paste it in here. And then if I go object, what is it? No, path, trace bitmap. This looks at like the difference of like color between like pixels, or in this case, it's actually exposure. So I'm not using color. And then it's got this like little display here. You see on the right? And I can like change this slider to like change that texture. And once I'm like kind of happy with it, I can hit apply. And then there's my texture here that you'll see there. And if I zoom in, I can see exactly what it looks like. Now I can make an image of that and put that into Blender and apply that. So I just got an image off Google, but you could take a picture of anything. You could take a picture of the sky on your wedding day and put it, make a texture, make a photo frame out of it. I don't know, whatever. Like it could be anything. Yeah, and that's like super easy and super quick. And what I like about this, instead of like finding an image on Google or whatever, is that it like connects to your world a little bit more. And also that sliding bar that I showed you allows you to really dial it in to how you want it. So you can like make it pick up more or less of the actual texture itself. If you slide it too much, obviously it won't make sense, but you can kind of like find the point that makes it work. Like if I wanted a really dense texture, I could like leave it like this and then hit apply. And I've got like two completely different textures. See how different these textures are when I zoom in. So yeah, thank you for hanging out with me this morning. It's been a lot of fun. I think I'm gonna have to tell everyone to make sure that they go on the school stream. I think we lost a few people joining the old chat. So, but yeah, if you have any questions during the week, always feel free to let me know or just post it in the community. Yeah, 2026 is going to be a big year. There's a lot of like things that I'm working on, especially 3D printed gear, and even outside of that, that's really exciting. And then obviously, having two baby girls is going to keep me busy too. So. I'm really grateful that the 3D printing has allowed me to like at least for most of my days be at home. And I hope obviously for you guys that are thinking of businesses or starting businesses that you can do it as well. Yeah, so let me know what you want to see next. Like if there's something that is like specific to what your goals are, like I'm happy to just do that. Like I did this based off a community member's request. This is actually their model that I've used. So if you have your own requests and your own things that you want to learn, then just let me know, because obviously like you're in this group because there's something that you want to achieve, something that you want. If I know that, then I can hopefully provide that for you guys. So yeah, don't be a stranger, and feel free to post, because there's a lot of people in the group now. I just there's almost 700 members. So there's actually six members. 6, 7. Sorry. 6, 7. Yeah, Liz knows what I'm talking about. Yeah.
6, 7.
Sorry.
I sold a lot of 6, 7 merch. It was great.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and a lot of like no 6, 7 signs. A lot of teachers bought those for their classrooms. So I'm happy with that little fad.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, so yeah, thanks for hanging out with me again, and we'll talk soon, guys. All right, ciao.
Thanks so much. Get some rest.
I'll try.
Congrats, Tony. Cheers.
Thank you, Adrian. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.